Hey guys, my name is Mitsumio, and welcome to your episode of Monday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for today is, do you think that Nomad needs a rework? I think her gadget should have a short delay before activating, letting roamers potentially take it out if they are fast enough. Well, I think it's safe to say that Nomad is pretty incredible in Rainbow Six Siege. Her pick rate and her win rate are phenomenal, and I think it just comes down to her gadget not really having any counters when you're roaming around or when you're trying to retake the objective. One of the reasons why I like Gridlock more than Nomad isn't because I necessarily think that she's strong or actually think that she's a weaker character objectively, but it's because there's actually dynamics between her and the defensive team. When you come across Gridlock's gadget on the ground, yeah, it's a bit of an obstacle, but it's not insurmountable. You can take it out, you can decide to run on through, maybe take a little bit of damage if they're paying really close attention to the audio around them. They might be able to hear you walking through her gadget, but at least you have a couple of options. With Nomad, as soon as you hear that gadget on the opposite end of a doorway, you're basically out of luck. How many times have you been on defense where you need to retake the objective because they planted the diffuser, but as soon as you get anywhere near it, you hear the telltale sign of Nomad's gadget on that doorway, and you're like, I guess I lose now? I mean, if it's a 1v1, there's literally nothing you can do about it. I mean, maybe you can get lucky if you have like a nitro or an impact nade to try to work around it, but more often than not, you already use that throughout the match. And so just to have essentially an auto loss, unless Nomad really throws it in that situation, I think is pretty frustrating and maybe not the best game design. And so what I like about your idea so much is that it finally would allow for a little bit more interactivity between offense and defense, and it would be something that you could work around. As soon as you hear the gadget, round the corner and then drop it and then proceed on through. It would still need to be a fast activation time. We wouldn't want this to take like 2 seconds to go off. It still needs to be quick, but at least giving some more options for defense to be able to actually dispatch of it in a timely manner, I think is a lot better than the current state of things. Now, the one big concern I have with a suggestion like this though, is that it has the potential of making Nomad's gadget not necessarily obsolete. It would still have its place because it could be an early warning sign, but nowhere near as viable as it currently is. One strategy that I could see a lot of people using is that they could run into a room, have Nomad's gadget see them, start the countdown for it to be able to activate, and then instead of trying to take it out with their primary weapon, which would require a little bit of skill and finesse and timing to be able to do that properly, they could then just run the opposite direction from where they came and then duck behind cover. Nomad's gadget, half a second later, would go off. Everyone in the vicinity would know that you're nearby, and so it would still provide that information. It wouldn't be completely useless, but clearly that's not what we were really going for. It would be a gigantic nerf to Nomad's kit overall. Now, one way that Ubisoft could work around this problem is just have 2 activation points. So the first one identifies, oh, it sees some offensive operator in its line of sight, and then half a second later, it then asks that same question again. Is that operator in line of sight once again? Go off. If not, because they duck behind cover, then nothing happens. It just stays where it was, and then it will rinse and repeat until it finally does activate. That could be one way to solve that problem. All in all, though, I think that this is a really interesting idea, and I'm hopeful that Ubisoft will consider doing something like this in the future. Who knows? Maybe this goes too far, and Nomad just becomes obsolete. Her gadget is now useless, which obviously is something that we want to avoid, but I do think there needs to be more interactivity between her and the defensive team, and this could be one way of going about it. The next question comes from Brian, and it is, what do you think about just giving Jaeger the UMP and Castle the 416? This is actually a suggestion I've been hearing a fair amount lately, weirdly enough. And I don't really know if this is the direction I want to see them balance out, not only Castle or for Jaeger. As soon as they did this, I can almost guarantee that Castle's pick rate would skyrocket, while Jaeger would probably plummet down significantly. All the people that claim that the reason why Jaeger has a 90% pick rate is because he has an essential gadget, I think would be in for a very rude awakening if all of a sudden he got a completely new primary, especially a primary which most people consider is one of the weaker ones in the game. You're gonna have a very hard time convincing me that people would continue to play him as often as they do if they just removed this weapon from his kit, especially something that essentially is his identity. This is also one of the reasons why I don't really think that this is the best idea. This essentially is the identity of the operator. As soon as you remove something as substantial as that and give it to someone else and give him something different, he's no longer the same character that he was before. Having such a dramatic change to one of the most beloved characters in the game, I really don't know if that is the best direction to take. With that said though, at least with regard to Castle, I am completely in favor of giving him more options to choose from. One of the reasons why I normally avoid him isn't because of his gadget. I actually think his gadget is fantastic in the right circumstance. It's just simply because his weapon is just not fun to use. It has a slow RPM. Yes, it does deal a significant amount of damage, but having a very slow RPM in a game is going to be a weakness, and it's honestly one of the biggest weaknesses that he has. And so if he had a slightly better option, or at least something else to choose from, I think that would be a massive step in the right direction. Now, some people might disagree because in the Pro League in particular, he's really powerful. Like, he is very strong, and this might push him over the top, but I think for like the vast majority of the player base, this would be a significant improvement. Overall though, while I do understand where you're coming from, I don't know if I could agree, at least with this change specifically. Yes, I do think that Jaeger probably does need some tweaking here and there, but to completely remove his primary weapon and give him honestly one of the weaker ones in the game, I don't know if that would kind of sit well with the community, but that is just my 2 cents. The next question comes from Braxton, and it is, have you played Rogue Company, and if so, what do you think of it so far? I will say that I've been pleasantly surprised by Rogue Company. I will admit, going into it, I was fairly skeptical. Looking at it, at least from the outside in, it just kind of looks fairly average, but once you sort of sink your teeth into it a bit more, it's a lot of fun. I think the best way of describing it is that it is a more casual third-person version of something like Valorant or Counter-Strike. You start the match where you choose a character that has a special ability. Each character also has specific weapons that are unique to them. And then as the match progresses, you will get money depending on how well you did, just like in CSGO. And then you use that to buy upgrades. The reason why I say it's a bit more casual is that even if you get taken out, you don't then have to rebuy that weapon at the beginning of the round. You will then just continue to buy more and more of these unlocks to tailor it to your playstyle or how you think the match is progressing. For example, if you're going against someone on the other team who picked a character who has a lot of explosive damage potential, you can then pick the perk on your character, if you actually have this option, to reduce that explosive damage. If you're someone who just wants to focus on their primary weapon and they don't even want to bother with their secondary gadgets at all because they don't really find them all that useful, you can do that as well. It gives you a lot of options to approach different situations. Now, the biggest thing that people are going to have to overcome though is that this game is entirely in third person, which probably means it's not going to be for everyone. You can sit behind a wall and watch when people walk down that alleyway and they have no idea that you're there. They might expect you to be there, but they aren't going to know until you walk out a split second later and laser beam them down with a couple of headshots, and that peeker advantage is incredible. Like, it's always going to be a part of the game. Now, they do give you tools to be able to work around this. You have different gadgets, you have different abilities that allow you to flush them out and make things a bit more fair, but that is a key and core component of Rogue Company. It's something that you're just going to have to accept and work around. It is a key focus of the game, which, as I said, is not going to be to everyone's liking. Overall, though, I have been enjoying my time with the game so far. I believe it's going to be on all platforms, even on Switch. I was not expecting that. And it is going to be cross-platform. It has some cool mechanics. The actual gameplay is exciting if you're into that. And so I would keep this on your radar. I might do a video later when the game actually officially releases and it's not in this closed the beta phase and kind of go more in depth. But at least so far, I have been impressed. The next question is, what do you think about bringing back the night mode to the game? I don't understand why it was removed, and I think it would make the game less boring and more alive. I think what it really just came down to was they wanted to make the game more consistent, and they also just wanted to improve visibility. The night maps were cool, don't get me wrong, but one of the issues that always came up was that because they're obviously darker, if you were on one of the more dim sections of the map, some of these characters would just disappear, and it was really hard to identify what was an operator and what was just a random object on the wall. In a game where a split second can mean the difference between your team winning and losing, having moments where just simply trying to identify even what that thing is out in the distance is something that Ubisoft wants to avoid. The other reason that I can think of for why they did this, even though I agree with you, I think the night maps were really cool, they added in some flavor and a little bit of variety into the rotation, is that they just wanted the game to be consistent throughout their playlist. They wanted you to know that if you were playing on a map that you were going to have the same experience that if you were playing on casual, unranked, or in ranked. Having that consistency is something that they've kind of demonstrated over the years, and I'm guessing that's the reason why they did that here. And so in general, I think that's just really what it comes down to. I would love to have the night maps return every once in a while. Maybe they could do it in a special playlist like the arcade mode that they've been doing every so often, like in a weekend, like, hey, play night maps once again, or add in a different twist. I think that would be nice, but I have a feeling that that was the reasons why they removed them from the game. Yeah, guys, that is it for today's episode of Monday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Would you like night maps to return in Rainbow Six Siege? Why or why not? Let me know down below. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until next time, guys, have a good one and take it easy.